In 2012, while driving on the Autostrada A24 motorway in Italy, Daniel Katz decided to start his own film company. As the head of the film financing division at Guggenheim Partners, he knew he'd be able to get the seed capital. He'd already been producing indie films for other companies, so why not start his own? The state of indie film was dire in the 2010s. Warner Independent was shut down in 2008, Paramount Vantage laid off a majority of their staff that same year, and Miramax was sold off in 2010. The studios that produced Before Sunset, No Country for Old Men, and Pulp Fiction respectively were all now gone, leaving a massive hole in the filmmaking landscape. In response, Daniel Katz stepped up to the plate. Daniel Katz started in film distribution in the late 90s, working at Merchant, Ivory, and Lionsgate. He wound up at Think Film and was instrumental in the release of Shane Carruth's Primer. He wound up in the film division of Guggenheim Partners, a finance firm providing backing for The Social Network and Zombieland. Katz partnered with David Frankel and John Hodges, who worked at Oscilloscope and Big Beach, respectively, to pioneer a new wave of indie film. The trio were inspired by Miramax's output in the 90s with films like Sex Lies and Videotapes, Reservoir Dogs, and Clerks. While many companies were inspired by the low-budget, high-profit model of indie film, the founders of A24 were inspired by the creative output that indies produce. And announced in 2012 as a New York-based company, A24 was introduced to the world. At the 2012 Toronto Film Festival, A24 picked up the rights to A Glimpse Inside the Mind of Charles Schwann III, a film by Roman Coppola produced by American Zoetrope, marking their first film as distributors. Partnering with Annapurna Pictures, A24 released Harmony Korine's Spring Breakers, which had just premiered at that year's Venice Film Festival, and was released in the spring of 2013. The film garnered an abnormal amount of buzz due to its eccentric performance from now-disgraced actor James Franco and multiple ex-Disney stars in a film for adults. 2013 also saw the release of Sofia Coppola's The Bling Ring, Sally Potter's Ginger and Rosa, and Jane Ponsol's The Spectacular Now. In 2014, they made a deal with DirecTV to release Denis Villeneuve's Enemy 30 days early as a pay-per-view before releasing in theaters. This barred it from releasing in Regal theaters, with them reportedly being unhappy with this model. This partnership would last until roughly 2017, being slowly phased out. A coveted strategy of A24's is their marketing. As part of the premiere from Ex Machina at South by Southwest in Austin, A24 planted a profile for Ava, the AI droid in the movie that the main character crushes on Tinder. The picture used was of the actress, and the profile would message things like, "Have you ever been in love?" and "What makes you human?" before linking an Instagram promotional page for the film. The next year, the company did a similar campaign with the Vivitch, giving the GOAT Black Phillip a Wendy-style Twitter account. The account got over 10,000 followers. They also collaborated with the Satanic Temple to launch a website, EmbraceSatan.com, in collaboration of the movie. In 2016, A24 earned 3 Oscars for their 2015 films. Amy won for Best Documentary, Ex Machina for Best Visual Effects, and a Best Actress win for Brie Larson's performance in Room. Their first Oscar year was a fruitful one, and a sign that they were headed in the right direction. 2016 was also the first year the company fully produced a film, both financing and distributing it. Moonlight was a film co-written and directed by Barry Jenkins, who previously made the Indie Spirit Award nominee Medicine for Melancholy. The film was not only a box office and critical success, but also won the 89th Oscar for Best Picture. The win was famously involved in an Oscar winner card mix-up. A24 courted Ari Aster soon after seeing his short film The Strange Thing About the Johnsons, a famously disturbing short that uses taboo in a pretty horrifying way, and they were interested in producing his debut feature. Aster conceived of the idea for a family drama that devolves into a chaotic supernatural horror film, using real grimoires or spellbooks as reference for the Demon King Paimon. The film was a massive cultural and box office hit, earning $98 million and becoming the highest grossing A24 film up to that point. They launched their television division in 2014. They partnered with USA Network for their first show, Playing House. The show was a moderate success, and the company would go on to produce sitcoms like The Carmichael Show and various stand-up specials, including for Jared Carmichael and Reggie Watts. It wasn't until 2019 though that they had their first television hit, Euphoria. Euphoria began as an idea by showrunner Sam Levinson based on his personal experiences growing up. The production got a pilot in March of 2018, and on July 30th, it was announced that Euphoria had received a full series order. The series was a hit, garnering over 600,000 views per episode and an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes, with high praise for the lead performance from Zendaya. The show went on to have 3 seasons and 2 specials of varying quality. The studio would go on to produce an array of series, including Mo, Beef, The Curse, and Margot's Got Money Problems, with more slated such as a Friday the 13th prequel series. In 2018, it was announced that co-founder John Hodges was leaving the company. Hodges now heads feature film development and production at Jax Media, the production company behind the 2022 film Fire Island. Soon after Hodges left, A24 entered a multi-year partnership with Apple, where A24 would produce films for Apple but not exclusively. A year later, in November of 2019, A24 entered a deal with Showtime Network to air their films and host them on the streaming service, excluding films part of the Apple deal. Early merchandise from the company was typical of movie studio merchandise: Blu-rays, logo t-shirts, and posters. In 2018, a streetwear brand called Online Ceramics made a bootleg shirt for Hereditary after seeing the trailer. An editor at GQ put them in touch with A24 creative director Zoe Bayer, and Bayer gave the brand their blessing. Thus began a years-long collaboration and a peek into a market A24 could now tap into. Their shop launched in 2019, and they've had a variety of products such as candles, Christmas tree toppers, and packs of hot dog finger gloves. In 2023, the company saw an Oscar sweep with their 2022 box office hit Everything Everywhere All at Once. Directed by directing duo The Daniels, whose previous film Swiss Army Man was notable for the amount of walkouts it received at the Sundance Film Festival before it got picked up for distribution. A24 produced Everything Everywhere, and production was announced in 2018. The film, which was a maximalist, thematically packed action-adventure romp, made $147 million on an estimated budget of $14 million. Then, in 2023, the 95th Oscars awarded the film an astounding 7 times. Michelle Yeoh became the first Asian woman to win Best Lead Actress, as well as the Oscars being the first to award multiple Asian actors in a single year, with Ke-Huy Quan winning Best Supporting Actor. The film also won Best Picture, Director, Supporting Actress, Original Screenplay, Original Score, Film Editing, and Costume Design. In 2024, A24 began releasing a variety of books, including coffee table books, screenplays, and local guides to places like Florida and Texas, and zines. In 2025, a membership was announced called EEAAO. It costs $9.99 a month and is currently still running. In April of 2025, A24 announced A24 Music, a new division of the company entirely focused on music production and distribution. The company had already released original scores, such as the one for Everything Everywhere, but the division's first official release was the soundtrack for I Saw the TV Glow, which features Alex G, Yule, and Phoebe Bridgers. The first artist signed to the label was British songwriter Mark William Lewis. More recently, the label put out indie electronic duo Ear's sophomore release, Rumspringa. The album has been met with rave reviews from both critics and fans. In 2022, a series of shorts exploring the concept of the Backrooms went viral. Studios immediately expressed interest in producing a film adaptation, with many producers being involved. In 2023, a film produced by A24 and Atomic Monster was announced, with Kane Parsons, who made the original series, making his feature directorial debut at just 20 years old. The film was a success, with it garnering an 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. It also became A24's biggest opening weekend, debuting at $81 million on a budget of $10 million. Currently on the schedule for the company is Olivia Wilde's The Invite, Matt Johnson's Tony, and Lance Oppenheim's Primetime, and for a 2028 release, Alex Garland's Elden Ring. Elden Ring marks the first for the company, with it not only being a massive production with a budget of over $100 million, it's also the first big IP the company would take on, being based off of the popular video game of the same name. A24 has certainly made a lot of noise over the course of their existence, from innovative marketing strategies to breakout hits and Oscar sweeps. The studio has both adapted with the times and they've forged their own way. They're no longer the standout indie studio, but without them, many of their companies simply would not exist.